Hi, this is Zach with Worn&Wound. Today I'll be taking a look at the Gavox Legacy Marine watches. Gavox is a fairly new brand. We reviewed some of their watches probably about a year ago, and those watches were very different from what we have here. They were quartz-based pilot watches, and they were cool and nice and affordable. And when they unveiled these, I was really surprised and excited to see the direction they had gone, because these are mechanical watches with a very different classical style to them that I feel like nobody really in this price range is going for. We see a lot of military-based watches, a lot of pilots, et cetera, but this kind of elegant marine style with brigade hands, things like that, not very common in the $400 price range or with mechanical movements. So yeah, these are really, really cool. We have two models here to look at. This is kind of the base model, and then we have one that is a little bit more complicated. There are two versions of this, which is the same except for includes a fairly elaborate 24-hour sub-dial there. So yeah, both these watches come in at just around $400. This one's $400. This one's about $445. They have Miyota automatic movements in them, sapphire crystals, very interesting design. So let's take a closer look. The case of the Gavox Legacy Marine is a fairly classically styled case, but it has a couple little details on it that make it a bit interesting and a bit unique. If you're familiar with marine chronometer style watches, which this sort of is, sort of isn't, they're usually a bit large because they're based on deck watches or deck clocks really from ships, so they tend to be in a slightly larger range. So these are 41 millimeters, which is a nice medium size, a bit large for a dress watch, but I think it's appropriate for the styling of this type of watch. It's about 51 millimeters lug to lug, and then about 11.7 millimeters to our measurement thick. So it's actually fairly thin. The case then itself, is fairly classic central area with these broad lugs coming off of them, and there's a kind of an interesting detail here with the lugs where they jut out just before they come back in, so it's a slightly bit more fancy style of lug than just like a straight contoured lug. And I think that kind of gives it a little bit of a look of perhaps a welded lug, something a little bit more from an earlier style of watch that works once again with the kind of classical styling you have going on here. In terms of finish, it's pretty simple, but they had a couple little things that are interesting. Mostly it's polished, the bezel's polished, but the tops of the lugs are brushed lightly in that direction. It might be a little bit tricky to see here, and you have a polished beveled edge here too. So you have just a little bit of contrast on the top. I actually kind of wish they maybe had pushed that a little bit further, maybe gotten a little bit of a stronger brushing on the top, and the sides too. But it's still nice and is pretty elegant. One of the stranger features of this watch is that the crown is off of 2 o'clock, and that I'd say has to do with the movement arrangement to get the sub-dial over by 4. But it's a little funny, it's a little off-putting. We usually used to crowns at 3, maybe 4. On a classic watch, it's almost always 3, so having it up at 2 is it's a little bit strange. I do wish they kind of pushed the crown design a little bit farther. It's not ugly or unappealing, but it feels kind of very standard, and perhaps something a little bit more of an ornate onion crown of some kind would have fit in with the style a little bit more. There's also a kind of an etched G on there, obviously for Gavox. That font also doesn't quite match with it. Very, details you can easily overlook, but if we're just going over everything, that could have been a little bit more refined in my opinion. Flipping the watch over now, these do have display case backs, which show off the Miyota 8219 in the case of the version with the sub-dial. So kind of an interesting looking movement. It's got a little bit of decoration and a gold rotor around it. You have some basic information on the watch, just about what you'd expect. So yeah, overall, it's a nice, elegant case and definitely a bit unique to the watch. The dials of the Gavox Legacy Marine series are very well detailed and very interesting looking. I think they did actually an excellent job overall with this. It's unique. It's kind of has a clever use of texture and everything, and it's just very, very appealing and well proportioned. So starting with this large index here of Roman numerals, it's very clear. I really, really like the Roman numerals they chose for this font. They're very tall and thin, which just has a really, really nice look. They're not overly fancy or anything, overly articulate. There's something kind of bold and blunt about them. It's just really, really nice looking. And those are sitting on a area that is all concentric circle graining. So as you move in the light, you can see that it's not just a flat white area, which is really, really nice. Looking in at the center of the dial, then you have this kind of faux Geneva stripe thing going on here with these striped lines. Once again, really interesting textural detail there. Creates a nice contrast, really breaks it up. I think it's much nicer than if they'd had like a flat central area. I mean, this isn't like a true guilloche dial. It's not like this hasn't gone on a lathe and been carved, but however it is they made this, probably through some sort of molding process, I think really, really gets, you know, the sensation across and the look of it. Looking in now at this sub-seconds dial that is off of 4 o'clock, once again, really, really nicely detailed. That too has a concentric circular patterning on it. You have this really simple index of with 60-10, you know, the units, then, excuse me, every 10-second intervals with sort of a railroad type indices around that. It fits perfectly in there. I really like what it's doing. It adds a little bit of asymmetry to the dial, a nice weight. I really, really like the location of it there. You know, it definitely speaks to some brands of, you know, higher end watches without kind of aping them in any way, but, you know, you do get a little bit of Breguet here, or maybe a little bit of Jacques Dro, something like that. But once again, not in like a me too. It's just a nice detail that makes the dial all the more interesting. On the outer chapter ring here, then you have a minute index. They switch to, you know, also at the seconds, they switch to Arabic numerals here. Also got a really, really nice font. Has a bit of a calligraphic nature to it, which works nicely with the styling of the watch. Then you also have a kind of a railroad track index there. It's just all very clear, very well presented, and very nicely proportioned. The fact that that area is on a slight angle looks really, really nice with the dial. It just, I don't want to say, it's just really, really, really well done. At 6 o'clock, you also have a date window here, which has a black date on a white disc, and they customized the date disc to have their own font there, which I think is a really nice detail. It's a cool little, you know, it just looks nice. It works really well. Definitely better than having a generic looking font. And then above here, under 12, you have the Gavox Watch Co. Very, very elegant, simply executed. Just, you know, it's exactly the way it should be. Looking now at this model, which has the addition of a 24-hour subdial. Obviously, this complicates the look quite a lot, makes the dial much busier, but it's also a very, very fun and interesting detail. So this 24-hour hand, and it's not a GMT, it is just 24-hour representation of the local time. Is split up into a kind of a day and night scene. So you have this textural sun underneath from 6 to 6, and then above you have stars and moons with these kind of rays coming out. And it's just subtle enough to not be cheesy or kind of, you know, silly looking in any way. It is a very large dial, so it is bold, but I really, really like it. I might like the minimal style a little bit more, but I think as far as execution of this kind of detail, this is very cool and very, very well done. Then quickly just about the hands here, you have a Breguet style minute and hour hands, which is, you know, this shape with that very typical circle there. They did fill those circles in with loom. You know, obviously that's just trying to make it a little bit more functional at night, but honestly, I think they could have spared that and just gone for the classic cutout shape. It would have just, you know, stuck with the styling a little bit more, and the loom there isn't so effective that it really makes it like a watch you can see in the, you know, in darkness. The second hand in both models then is this really nice needle second hand with a open cutout circle on the back. It's just very cool looking. And then the 24-hour hand here, not quite sure how to describe that shape. It's got a little cutout oval in there. Also very elegant. I like that everything is different. They didn't just reuse the hand to do that. So yeah, overall, I think just really, really wonderful dials here. Just quickly talking about the movements that they use here. Both watches use Miyota automatic movements. This one has the 8219 and this one has the 8218, the difference being the 24-hour subdial. In both cases, they've been customized to have their own rotor design as well as their own date design. And it's a very simple movement. Pull out one stop, turn the crown counterclockwise to change the date here. And then pull it out 2 stops and change the time. It does not have hacking seconds. Pushing it in, I believe it does hand wind when it is in this position. Just taking a quick look at it from the other side, you can see their custom kind of gilt rotor here with their logo on it. Definitely a nice touch to have that there, especially on a watch in this price. I think it just, it's nice to see that they consider everything. Both movements are 21 joules. They both run at 21,600 beats per hour. I believe they have a power reserve of around 35 to 40 hours. On the wrist, the Gavox Legacy Marine, it's very bold. It's fairly large size, but like I said, Marine watches tend to be a little bit larger, and I think this is just right. I think it's I think the max size I really want for a watch with these kind of elegant classical features, and it's not, I also wouldn't want any smaller than this because I think the proportions of everything have a really, really nice presence and just a really nice kind of handsome, masculine, dressy look. This is a watch, though, I think, it's definitely much dressier than a tool diver or a pilot watch, but it's also a watch I think you can pretty comfortably wear daily. It has a kind of a versatile but formal design, and just the look of this watch is just really killer. I think it's very elegant, very refined. Just really hit it on the head. There's a ton of strap options you can choose from when you get the watch. Various leather colors, various leather textures. I'll show you on both watches. I'll show you this one on the wrist also, but we chose kind of a honey brown leather strap for this. It's a very, very nice strap. I think we've seen similar ones on the Gavox or Techno watches before. It works really, really well with the style. Very elegant, and it's a 20mm strap. And now I'll show you what the other watch style looks like. The other style with the 24-hour hand clearly is a little bit busier, a little bit more complex. I think that if you're looking for something a little bit showier, this is a nicer option. Though I think for my own personal taste, I like the more minimal version a little bit better, but still very, very cool look, and interesting, intriguing. Here you have it on a blue faux croc style leather strap. This is actually a really cool strap. I liked it more than I thought I would. I think the blue, it's a really nice dark blue, and I like how the texture comes through in it. And the blue here then brings out a little bit of the blue in the blue steel hands that are going on. So it actually complements it really nice. And I think blue is not quite as versatile as brown, but you can still wear this with many different varieties of things. But obviously, just switch it out for the strap that works best with your outfit, and both of these watches will be very versatile. One other cool thing I wanted to show you was the packaging that these watches come in. It's very different from anything we've seen, at least recently. They come in these interesting leather or faux leather pouches with lining. So very simply, you take the watch, put it in there, fold this over, and you just tie them off. I think this is very cool. I personally, if you know the Worn&Wound products, we really like kind of this style of organic product where it's just very simple. You tie things off, things like that. I think you could tie a little better than I did here, but you see how this works, and it's very simple, easy kind of travel pouch or something you can throw in your sock drawer with the watch when you're not wearing it. So just a cool thing. To wrap up, I think the Gavox Legacy Marine watches are a really, really cool new offering as well as new direction for the brand. I think that nobody else is really occupying this space in the very affordable under $500 market. So it's really smart for them to come in and try it, and then I think go a step beyond and really execute very well, especially with the texturing and just the graphic design of the dials. They're really, really nice. They're really satisfying to look at. It's one of those watches when it's on your wrist, you just kind of want to stare at during the day, which I think is a really good indicator of the design being successful. I think both models we show here, and there is one more model that features a 24-hour hand as well that's a little bit more ornate, has like gold stars on things like that. But between these two models, I think you have two really, really great options. My personal preference is for the more minimal one without the 24-hour hand, but I think for what they did with the 24-hour hand, it's very unique, very different. And once again, just kind of finishing it off, these watches are $400 for the simpler version and around $445 for the version with a 24-hour hand. So they're really quality, affordable automatics. The Miyota movement in there, very good Miyota movement. It's not the 9015 series. They don't make those with sub-dials, but these 8200 series are time proven. So I think you're just getting a very, very good watch. Please read the full review on Worn&Wound. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter. Thank you.